where it was and why it's so important. So if you see Tibet all the way in the right-hand corner, Monthang is the capital of Upper Mustang, which you can see. It's like the biggest village, just center, almost at the Tibetan border. And it's one of the last remaining enclaves of old Tibetan culture. Nepal has not been occupied, and the people that are living at the border are ethnically Tibetan. In fact, that part of Nepal was part of Tibet up until the 18th century, and then the borders changed. So the music, the art, the language, the religion, people have been practicing those for the same way for over 1,000 years. And only recently there has been a great desire from the community and also from people around the world to start documenting these things to try to save this culture. Many of the Tibetans are in diaspora, and even the people in Monthang are leaving, looking for a better life, and there's some political pressure coming in, environmental flux. So I became unknowingly part of that effort. So you can see the Kali Gandaki River goes up all those little villages. It's the deepest river gorge in the world. And there we found salograms. They were all over. They're little fossils, sea creatures that are 150 million years old. And even before I started thinking about making a piece of art, I was just astounded by the vastness of time. And just so you know, because this will come back in the piece that we're performing, the Tibetan word for stone is do. So we hooked up with Sienna Craig, who is the chairman of anthropology at Dartmouth College, because we needed to have one more person to trek with us. And Sienna was taking her 3.5-year-old daughter, Ada, to the place where she had done her Fulbright. So we were 3.5 women and a horse master. I was always in the back because my horse, which I nicknamed Wildfire, didn't like the path at all and preferred the rocky cliffs. When the going got rough, we got off the horses and we walked into the villages. This is the village of Gemi, known for growing barley and mustard. As you can see, it looks a little bit like the American Southwest, but much vaster, and of course we were in very high altitude. We came across some yaks along the way, and we also passed through on our way to Monthang, the village of Lubra, where the first of many things happened that were, I guess you could say, auspicious. And this village, Lubra, is one of the villages that still practices the pre-Buddhist religion called Bunpo. It's an ancient shamanic religion. And when we were there, a very famous anthropologist, Charles Ramble, was there documenting a protection ritual, and he had run out of battery. And I happened to have a good digital recorder. So I started to record the Tibetan puja or ceremony for him. In turn, he taught me about the Tibetan ritual instruments. So you can see the large drum is called the na, and on the right, the young monk is playing the romo. These are cymbals. The cymbals are actually the leader of the Tibetan ritual orchestra. And I'll make a delineation between the ritual music and the folk music because they're actually quite different. So we made it to Monthang, which was founded in 1380 and led by a series of feudal kings. When we were first there, we had the good fortune of meeting the king of Monthang, Jigme Bista, and he even invited us to dinner. I started to study the instruments of the Tibetan ritual orchestra. Here you can see the na on the left, and the geling, which is the only instrument that plays a tune in the ritual music. It's kind of a trilling sound. We got dressed up in the traditional dress to meet the king, and I was concerned about what shoes you wear to be a king, and was very edified to see that he was also wearing hiking boots. So sadly, Jigme Bista was asked to step down in 2010 and by the Nepali government, and he passed in 2016, so it's really the end of a long era of feudal kings. So here are the people in the picture. Sienna is on the left with her little daughter Ada. On the right is Maureen Durdak, the artist, and sitting to my left in this picture is our babysitter, Nordsing. So Sienna was doing work in the fields. Her specialty is Amchi medicine, which is traditional herbal Tibetan medicine that's grown in the ground, and this monk is collecting rhubarb for medicinal purposes, and we taught him that he could make pie. So there were a number of really incredible things that happened. One of them is that I met the world's leading cultural restorationist, John Sanday, who restored Angkor Wat and all these incredible old ancient places around the world. He was just leaving Monthang after 12 years of helping document the art that was literally falling off the walls from these old monasteries that had been painted as part of the Tibetan Renaissance. And who would he bring in to help restore these paintings? Well, he brought in the Italians. So there's a whole team of Italians, and Maureen and I made friends with the Italians, and they in turn took us to the caves where they were discovering all these very new frescoes. And I was learning about the music. Here's some of the instruments. But I wanted to learn about the folk music. So I asked John Sanday. We met him as he was coming down the mountain after 12 years of restoration. We were going up. I said, where should I go to learn about the folk music of Monthang? He said, you must find Tashi Tsering. He's the last of the royal court singers who sings a repertoire of song called Garlu. These songs have been passed down for hundreds of years from father to son, and now only Tashi Tsering remains. There used to be a whole band of Ameda musicians, and because of the interest in modernization, a lot of the people, wanted to do away with the old ways, and various other things, including the caste system, because the folk musicians were at the bottom of the caste system, and the monks were at the top. So Tashi Tsering couldn't own any land within within Monthang. So I found him, and he agreed to sing for me 7 songs. I just happened to have a good digital recorder, and was pleased that he was so forthcoming about sharing his music. He also taught me some dances. And I'd like to introduce you to Tashi Tsering. You can also see that he likes to perform. This is an unedited recording, and I'll just play a little bit of it.
All right.
Which is a common song with dance. Our project started to widen, and we ended up recording a lot more than we thought. So this is an example of some of the ritual music. It's called a cham dance, and they're exorcising a demon. And you'll hear the cymbals and the long horns, the dung chen, and the na drums. well, how would all of this impact a composer, or a writer, or a painter? I didn't do much composing there, I just wanted to take it all in. But Maureen was collecting clay from the region to use in her paintings, and she thought that it would be a wonderful idea to create a piece based on the Riksum Gompo, which are 3 structures that are affiliated with 3 different gods, essentially Manjushri for wisdom, Avalokiteshvara for compassion, and Vajrapani for action. And she created 3 paintings based on the colors that are associated with the deities and their qualities. And we called the piece Lung Ta, Lung meaning wind and Ta meaning horse. Wind and horses being essential elements of this culture, but also the Lung Ta is the name of the prayer flag. And if you look very closely to the center of the prayer flag, you can actually see a horse with wings, like our Pegasus, carrying the Buddhist prayers to the heavens. A senior monk wrote us a prayer for peace, and Maureen incorporated it into her paintings. This slide doesn't do justice. They're large and they're very, very textural and beautiful. You can see the image of the horse and the clouds and the gold threads, and the Tibetan prayer is underneath. The piece was premiered, Lung Ta, in Philadelphia, and I brought on Group Motion Dance Company, Philadelphia's oldest modern dance company, to perform as well. Lung Ta incorporates fragments of some of the music that I heard in my own contemporary language. And the piece has been performed in various places as a prayer for peace and was presented to the Dalai Lama in 2009 as an initiative for world peace. So I'd like to play you just a little bit of it. I'll play you the very beginning, and then I'm going to switch over to the middle movement, which is the compassion movement that uses part of one of Tashi Tsaring's melodies. Oh, this is the compassion movement. I had it queued up. Hear more of it or have a recording, I'd be happy to send it to you. There's also a recording on my website. So, when I got that initial yes, and I, went home after Maureen said, would you like to come with me and, go on this track, I really had no idea that my life would be changed. And what happened after this, we came home, the piece was premiered, and then I received some correspondence from members of the community in Monthang. They wondered if I could come back and complete the recording of Tashi Tsering, who knew many, many songs, first time I only recorded 7, and I just happened to be in the right place at the right time with a good digital recorder. So I contacted Dr. Sienna Craig, with whom I trekked, and I asked her if there was somebody who might want to go, and she connected me with one of her former students, Katie Blumenthal, who speaks Tibetan and was an avid trekker and an anthropologist and an ethnomusicologist. We received funding from the Rubin Foundation in New York City dedicated to preserving Himalayan culture. And we got enough funding for the recording and for the travel, but not enough for the horses. So that's yours truly, making my way up the first of those 10 mountain passes with a lot of batteries in my backpack. There's Katie. So this was in 2010, we went back. And this image is really a document of one of the most important moments in my life as a person, as an artist. When we arrived, Tashi Tsering greeted us warmly. And Katie said, why don't you play some of the music that you had written that was inspired by his songs? And I remember feeling a lot of trepidation. What is he going to think about this modern music? He'd never heard Western, classical, contemporary music. In fact, he hadn't even heard a lot of the instruments, in our orchestra. And Katie said, well, just play it for him on your iPod. So he's listening to the part that I just played for you of the much longer piece, Lungta. And there was a translator sitting next to him. And he said, this is the place where your world and my world meet. And it still gets me choked up because, we think about the power of arts, the power of music, the power of any kind of work that transcends language and how it can connect us across the globe. So everybody then wanted to listen. These 3 ladies knew a completely different repertoire. And they recognized the monks and the sound of the trilling of the gellings. And so we began the recording project. Tashi Tsering sang for us, and then the 3 ladies in the picture also sang for us. In fact, we recorded people all over the area who wanted to sing for us. And we ended up recording 130 songs from Monthang. So here's a video of the oral tradition in practice. These 3 ladies, 2 of them are sisters, learned this song from their elders. It's called Shar Ki Ri. You'll actually hear us performing a different version of it live. And they start out arguing how the song should go. No, it goes like this. So they come to an agreement. Play a little bit of the fast section. So you hear they're making a percussive sound with their voices. It's like a and it creates a kind of a rhythm. You'll hear that in a little bit. So Katie and I discovered that there's a beautiful cultural library in Monthang that had just been built, and they didn't have any electricity at the time. There was some solar, but they had this incredible building, and we noticed that there wasn't a section in the library that was dedicated to their own culture. So we're here speaking to the librarian about sending the recordings that we made back up to Monthang on cassette tapes with boom boxes and batteries and headsets so that the teachers could teach them to the children. And they have arrived and are part of the cultural library, along with a number of books and other historical information that we provided for them. So our work, and Katie did a lot of this work because she did the translation and transliterations along with Karma Wangyal in Monthang, was accepted into the University of Cambridge World Oral Literature Project, an urgent global initiative to document and make accessible endangered oral literatures before they disappear without record. And the language that we're speaking about here is the Mustangi dialect of Tibetan that the people are speaking there, which indeed has become an endangered language because so many people are leaving, thousands, for Queens, New York, where they're relocating and they're assimilating into American culture, and the elders are concerned that the language might be lost. So on return to Philadelphia, I was commissioned to write a piece of music called Sego La by two choirs. The Pennsylvania Girl Choir, girls ages 9 through 15, and the Mendelssohn Club, a very large mixed choir. And they asked if I could create a cantata which would bring some of these melodies, or even portions of them, sung in the original Mustangi dialect, to America for the first time. And that piece was difficult to write for many reasons. I had to understand transliteration. There are a lot of silent syllables, and make that choral friendly. So I don't know if you can see, because it's very, very tiny, but taking the scholarly transliteration and then making a musical friendly transliteration for the singers to read. The piece was premiered in Philadelphia. There were 200 singers and the Chamber Orchestra of Philadelphia. And then it's been performed in a number of places as a way to educate young people about this area, about the Tibetan culture and the Mustangi culture. And recently, and this is part of my project for WISC, there's been interest in a songbook that would take some of these songs and transcribe them into musical notation, and that they could be learned by young people, even younger than the ones in the photograph, middle school, for instance. And so I've been working while here on transcribing some of those melodies, which I sent off to my publisher for a middle school collection. Just the beginning of an initiative for a songbook where children around the world could learn these songs, or at least some of them. So I'm going to play you a little bit of the original cantata, and then my friend Heidi, and we have a special guest, which I'll tell you about in a minute, we will perform a shortened and smaller version of it for you live. But I just wanted to kind of mention that this has been a hugely rewarding experience for me, and to be able to go into another culture and to be greeted so warmly, and to be able to want to give back. And so the pieces that are published, portions of the royalties are going back up to the village to help support restoration from the earthquakes. And there have been a number of initiatives through this work to raise money for that and for other initiatives as well. So first, the piece Sego La that you will hear is on rites of passage. And we're not going to do the whole thing because it's a very big piece, as I mentioned, for 2 choruses and orchestra. And it's based on rites of passage, those thresholds in our lives, from birth all the way through death. And there's movements from birth, adolescence, young love, wedding, elderhood, and death, and then different transitions. Sego La translates as at the threshold of this life. So it's about those times in our life when we're about to move into something that is unfamiliar. It feels really big. It's scary. We know what's come before. We don't know what's coming next. And then the Mustangi songs are within the center of the cantata. The outer movements are in English, composed to poetry by Sienna Craig, the birth and death movements, which we won't be doing. But we will perform for you 3 of those movements: the adolescence, young love, and elderhood. This is Sharkiri. You heard the original with the ladies in the last video. This is the Pennsylvania Girl Choir singing this at the premiere with just some images from the track. Which is also the title of the entire cantata, but it's the centerpiece as well. It's a beautiful melody that Tashi Tsering sang to me, a Garlu melody, and it talks of a young boy who meets the girl that will become her destiny to wed, and he likens her to a mountain and a lake and a beautiful green pasture and a flower. And I felt this melody was so haunting that I wanted to use it as the centerpiece for the cantata. Here's a little bit of Segola with the 2 choruses. This is a picture of documenting Tashi Tsering Here's the last movement, Rei Chung So. Let's see if I have the, oh, here's the audio of the original. So this is the third movement that we will perform for you. It's the elderhood movement, and Rei Chung So translates as the performers. It's about an old man who goes to the opera, the Tibetan opera, and when he hears the music, he feels young again. And as I mentioned, the piece is about rites of passage, and in the original large work, the transitions from one movement to another are really important. In fact, they're so important in our own lives, in our yoga practice, in the way that we live. It's not just about the arrival, but it's about these liminal places that get us to where we're going and being mindful with that. So the transition into the elderhood movement is probably the fiercest of all the thresholds, because I believe that it's one of the rites of passage that is missing from our own culture, honoring the initiation into elderhood. So when we perform this for you in a little bit, you'll hear Heidi play the conch shells, and you hear some, kind of powerful and fierce sounds. Here's a little bit of the Rei Chung So movement, which is another beautiful melody. Here's a little bit from the cantata. Finishing up here, here are some of the movements that are published for choirs of all ages, and the ones that I've just sent off here from WISC are the wedding movement and